My cousin tied the knot with my domineering ex-boyfriend, lied about me, trashed me in their wedding speech, had her mother cut her off, and even attempted a nighttime break-in. Julia, my cousin, is 27 years old and began seeing my ex-boyfriend, Louis, 29 years old, 2 years ago. During our 3 years together, I, 27F, had been with Louis. While I was in my second year of college and he had just graduated, we began dating. We dated for 3 years before breaking up just a few weeks after I turned 20. In all candor, the relationship was unhealthy. It was my first serious romantic relationship, and I deeply regret it. Although we appeared to be the ideal couple on paper, our actual lives couldn't have been more opposite. Because he was so insecure and overbearing, he forbade me from doing anything I wanted to do alone, including going out to clubs or even talking to my male friends. In his relentless pursuit of compliance, he would resort to manipulating and gaslighting me into believing that I was to blame whenever things didn't go according to plan. I was desperate to maintain his presence in my life, so I would go to great lengths to satisfy him, but it wasn't enough to keep him. He broke up with me, claimed our relationship was failing, and then blocked me so I couldn't get in touch with him. I made every effort to reconnect with him following our breakup, but he vanished without a trace. Word got around that he had found someone new to date within 2 months. I genuinely disliked that guy, and that was a complete and utter waste of my time. After the breakup, we didn't talk to one another for a while. On the other hand, he unblocked me and sent me a birthday message when I turned 25. I chose not to answer him. I had also moved on and was seeing someone else when he started contacting me, so I found it strange. However, after receiving no response, he persisted in contacting me. In the end, I had no choice but to block him, and after that, we went silent for a few months. But I was surprised to hear that Louis would be the one she wanted to introduce me to when I visited Julia's house a few months after my birthday. He apparently wanted to make amends with me before everything happened, which is why he had been contacting me earlier on my birthday. After meeting at work, the two of them began dating and soon were deeply in love with one another. For as long as either of us can remember, Julia and I have been quite close. I was taken aback by this as she had known that we had a strained relationship and that he was poisonous to me. When I found out they were dating, I was shocked, and she assured me she understood how awkward it would make me feel. However, I was eager to comply with her request that I give it a go. However, I found it to be excessive. Even though it was my first significant relationship between my junior and senior years of high school, I couldn't help but feel bad for Julia, because Louis was someone who had hurt me deeply in the past. With the exception of crushes, I had no friends. Because of the way he had treated me before, I held a deep animosity against him because he had ruined that for me. Attempting to be as diplomatic as possible, I informed Julia that, although I genuinely desired her happiness, I was unable to accept the reality that she was now with Louis and did not believe I desired to continue being involved in her life. After that, she tried to talk to me multiple times, but I still couldn't accept her sadness. Simply put, she was the only one who could have understood the extent to which his toxic influence had affected me and the anguish I had endured as a result. She continued dating him, though, and she insisted he had transformed into a better person, but I refused to believe her. I had no problem with her being free to have him in her life and be with him. On the other hand, I was within my rights to exclude him and, by extension, her from my life. It was easy for me, but it was obviously tough for Julia and me, because we were cousins and best friends. However, I took action since it was something I had to do for my own benefit. I haven't talked to her much in the 2 years after she told me she started seeing Louis. I can't say that I blame her for being emotionally distant from me when she learned I wouldn't engage in conversation with her. Our relationship has been characterized by extreme coldness ever since. We used to be the kind of cousins that would cling to one another and gossip about each other's lives, but now when we meet up for things, we just ignore each other. Things had changed, though, and I was quite fine with it. Since everyone had their own life and was free to do as they liked, I didn't mind her. It was my intention to avoid communicating with her, but it seems she took offense and sought retribution. I didn't think it was essential for her to harm my reputation by spreading rumors about me to other relatives, but she did it nevertheless. No matter how bad things got between us, I would never intentionally hurt her. She had been spreading the word for the last 12 months that I was the one who caused my split from Louis supposedly. I lacked morals and ethics. The tales that she and Louis had been spreading about me claimed that I would openly flirt with other boys while we were together with Louis. The true cause of his possessive and controlling behavior was that they portrayed me as the one who flirted with him, which caused him to feel insecure, even though it was completely false. In fact, it was the inverse. He would be overly nice toward other women and think I would be cool with it, but he took issue with my having male friends, even though our relationships were strictly platonic. Plus, he was a master manipulator and gaslighter who had me severing all ties with everyone. I was disgusted by their attempts to tarnish my name inside my own family, but I was occupied with my own life and didn't give a hoot about what they were saying. Besides, No one really bought into what they said, so I was okay with it. I knew it would give them exactly what they wanted, so I didn't react or respond to it. This is my reaction. Additionally, I knew that I wanted to stop this. If I only talked to my aunt, she would handle everything, so it would be incredibly easy for me. I knew Julia's mother would do the right thing since she was a federal court judge, and even though our relationship had deteriorated, I was still rather close to her. Everyone knew that she had a steely backbone. She is the older sister of my dad. Even though she is the daughter of someone who would never knowingly do something dishonest or wrong, Julia somehow managed to become the way she is. She just started her own jewelry line, but from what I heard, it was not doing too well. As a result, Julia would also have to suffer a lot because she was financially dependent on her mother. However, if we could just have a conversation, all of this would be over. Regardless, I felt confident in my ability to deal with the situation independently and did not wish to annoy her with such trivial matters. So I refrained from broaching the subject with her. Besides, I was interested in seeing what kind of wild theories they would concoct, because in the end, it wouldn't matter. Even now, my other relatives approach me to spill the beans about what she said to me behind my back. Therefore, for me, it was only entertaining. They revealed their engagement and impending wedding dates shortly after, which was 6 months ago. I didn't receive an invitation, but that was okay with me because my parents did. It was also unexpected for me to receive an invitation to the wedding. Everything that has transpired between Julia and me, let alone Louis, makes me doubt that I would accept an invitation to go. The wedding was 3 days ago, but I didn't give a hoot, because it was just another ordinary day for me. At some point, though, my phone began to get inundated with texts from every single member of my family. My parents phoned me and said they needed to talk to me because everyone was harping on a speech that Julia and Louis had given at the wedding. I was genuinely perplexed by all of this. I became really angry when they eventually informed me what had transpired. It seems like they used the wedding as an excuse to spew as many negative things about me as they could in a single speech. They intended to incite the whole family against me, and if I hadn't prepared myself to fight back, they could have succeeded. Even though Julia and Louis were astute enough to avoid naming me, they couldn't help but make passing references to an absent ex-girlfriend who could only have been alluding to me. Anyway, all the rumors that they had spread about me before were repeated, such as the fact that I was the flirt and that I was apparently a gold digger. During our time together, I would depend on Louis financially and expect him to cover all my expenses. He had already done so, since I had insisted that I was only a college student and couldn't afford to be wasteful. That was also false. On our dates, I would always insist that we split the bill, and never once expected him to foot the bill, much less demand it. They said that the accusation that I had cheated on him was the most horrific thing they had ever said about me, and it was the reason the relationship ended. So now, at the wedding, they had expressed their relief that I wasn't there, since they didn't want such a toxic presence in their lives. They had also issued an ultimatum, saying that going forward, the family could invite me to their events, or they could invite me, because they would definitely skip out on any family gathering where I showed up. As I indicated before, I was really irate when I learned about it from my parents. Nevertheless, following that, individuals began phoning me to inform me about it. Since my parents could not tolerate that Julia was going to such extreme measures, they left right after that speech, so I thanked them for their help. My aunt was reportedly quite confused by all that was happening, and she even spoke to them about whether or not Julia's claims in her speech were true. I agreed with her that what she said was completely out of character. I hadn't done that, and her suspicions about her daughter's veracity were entirely justified. Their comments about me in their wedding speech made me resolve to go to extreme measures, so I retrieved old screenshots to show that they were lying. It took me a long time and a lot of digging to get what I needed, because I had to scroll for what felt like an eternity to get there. Fortunately, I finally located the screenshots of our discussion that I had been seeking after a very long search. During this period, he was especially poisonous and aggressive, and we were just starting to pick up. Several hurtful things were stated by him to me. We often lamented that he should have never dated me in the first place, and that he squandered 3 years of his life with me, when he could have been with anyone else, especially since so many women had shown interest in him during that time, but now he's finally going to date other people. I doubt he would have forgiven me so readily if he knew I had cheated on him, especially since the topic was never brought up. In any case, I continued scrolling up the page and discovered more discussions in which he was poisonous towards me. I decided to share them all online, without a title or explanation, since I believe they speak for themselves. Indeed, they did. Following the publication of the screenshots, they resorted to texting and commenting on my posts, each time claiming to have knowledge that the claims were unfounded. They reasoned that my behavior seemed abnormal, given that everyone had known me since I was a child, and I certainly did not behave in such a manner. The fact that my family was rooting for me and not for them along with the screenshots proving their lies, was all I needed. A number of guests even got in touch with me to inform me that they had bailed on the wedding entirely due to the slurs directed at me. So, even though Julia and Louis thought their speech would be effective in turning people against me, it backfired spectacularly, and they found themselves with no allies whatsoever. Unfortunately for them, not even my aunt was still on their side. They called me the night of the wedding and began pleading with me to forgive Julia for being so dishonest and attempting to tarnish my reputation because she couldn't accept that I had chosen to cut ties with her, because she was seeing my ex-boyfriend. Apparently my aunt had spoken to them about how disappointed she was after reading the screenshots I had shared online and how Julia had been so cruel. The continuing drama had already caused most of the visitors to depart. My aunt expressed her extreme disappointment and dissatisfaction with Julia's behavior, telling her that she had expected better after conversing with them. She was also planning to cut ties with the two of them until she apologized to me and I forgave her. Despite Julia's best efforts to persuade her otherwise, she ultimately decided to go because she was heavily reliant on her mother. The two of them contacted me late at night and began to apologize profusely. They were well aware that they could not have survived without my aunt's help financially, as she had been supporting her daughter for a long time. Actually, Julia had been contemplating closing her firm and taking a break for quite a while, so she would suddenly be much more dependent on her mother. Things were not going to go as planned, and she was quite concerned about the future, ever since my aunt had chosen to cut her off. Because of this, she reached out to me, pleading with me to forgive her, delete the post, and confide in my aunt. Due to my extreme distress at the events of the past several days, I declined to do that and even blocked two of them. But ever since then, they have been contacting me in an attempt to get me to reconsider, and I am now utterly bewildered as to what I ought to do. We have discussed my aunt, and she is an incredibly honest woman. I informed her that I did not want our relationship to be affected by my equation with Julia, as I had not allowed it to happen before, and would not allow it happen now. She phoned me the day after the wedding to express her regret for whatever Julia had done. I can make things right for Julia if I speak to her. But I don't really feel the need to, so it's all well with us. It is her responsibility to figure things out on her own, after all. She is an adult woman. The other fallout from her deeds, but then again, knowing I could assist her but opting not to would make me feel like a complete jerk. Basically, I don't know what to do at the moment. Kindly provide me a hand. AITA, for avoiding my aunt and failing to persuade her to forgive my cousin for the trash talk she delivered about me during her wedding to my ex-boyfriend. Hello, first update. To start, I want to express my deepest gratitude for everyone's kind words and encouragement. I must first get one thing cleared up before I go into the update. Like many other members of our extended family, my parents were present for the wedding. They represent the more senior generation in our family, and they had no idea of the stories that were circulating regarding me. Most of the time, Louis and Julia would say it to other cousins and relatives who were either our age or close to it. They were excluding the elderly from it. As a result, my parents went to the wedding out of respect for my aunt, even though they had no clue what was being said about me. Despite their acknowledgement that Julia's relationship with this boy had strained our relationship, I still felt horrible about it. I had purposefully refrained from speaking to them or voicing any complaints, just as I had refrained from speaking to my aunt, simply because I had no interest in involving them in or dragging them into anything so trivial. Obviously, Julia and Louis were lower than me, but I was. Anyone who questions or hates my parents should know that they were unaware and attended the wedding because of that. Everything is great because they and a few other older folks who heard the comments made about me at the wedding opted out and are no longer friendly with Julia or Louis, so it was all for the best. I hope that was crystal obvious. Proceeding now. I blocked Louis and Julia a week after the wedding. Neither one. So they couldn't contact me, but it doesn't seem to stop them from trying. They continue creating new social media accounts and sending me emails despite my best efforts to ban them. Although they are in a state of extreme desperation, I have resolved not to get personally engaged in assisting them. My aunt and I have stayed in touch, and she has told me that she will stop supporting her daughter until I forgive her. But to be honest, I don't think it's necessary to forgive her because for an entire year, I didn't say a word and let people say whatever they wanted about me because I wasn't paying attention. They were under the impression that it would give them carte blanche to escalate the situation, but now they must deal with the fallout. Plus, I don't think she should be receiving her mother's support at this point in her life. By the time she's in her late 20s, she should have a clear idea of what she wants to do. At this point in time, I fail to understand why someone would still depend on their parents for financial support. She has always been far too slothful to commit to a career, and it's not like she lacks education or competence. It was the same when we were both fresh out of college and in our early 20s, and I honestly believed she would mature out of it, yet it remains unchanged to this day. I guess I'm doing her a favor by cutting off her ties with my aunt financially. I imagine she'll learn to work harder or something. Whatever the case may be, I've already decided not to lend her a hand. I sought solace in discussing this decision with my parents, who assured me that I was entirely justified in my actions, and I am grateful for their support. Forgiving her was a decision I had to make for myself. It was my concern for her future that compelled me to forgive her, even though I did not believe she deserved it. In any case, they could have gotten by without my aunt's financial assistance if they chose to. Louis still had a good career. In the end, I've discussed this with my parents, a few friends, and you all, and everyone agrees that I shouldn't feel bad. In all honesty, I feel a lot better now. However, I have removed that post since I do not believe it was necessary to remain up for much longer. I don't want to keep this on my profile since it would be incredibly tough to explain everything that happened to all the other people who follow me, even though everyone in the family already knows. Therefore, removing it was a lot less of a hassle. For the time being, I'm attempting to center myself by returning to my meditation practice in an effort to disengage from external stimuli and approach life with a Zen mindset. This has helped me tremendously in letting go of the rage and shame that I've been experiencing over the past few days. I also hope that Julia and Louis would stop letting me dictate their every move and start living their lives to the fullest, as they have been doing for the past few months. All of us will benefit from that, in my opinion. Second update, hey there. It's been a month since the wedding, and as far as I can tell, Louis and Julia are back to their pretentious ways. Because I still haven't forgiven them, and there's no need for me to, my aunt still won't speak to them. Reason being, I am aware that their sincere apologies were hollow. They pretended to be sorry but were really just trying to con my aunt out of some cash. When I did not budge after a few days of their insistence that my aunt talk to them and that I should forgive them, they finally gave up. Following that, they resumed their campaign of circulating rumors about me. They also showed a lot of imagination in their use of it. I wanted the entire bequest for myself, so apparently they spread the word that I was plotting to destroy their relationship with my aunt. Since my parents are also rather well off, the idea that I would do anything so ridiculous and illogical is laughable. I'm doing well for myself with my good job, so there's no need to go there. I am confident that I will not be dependent on anyone for financial support in the future, so I am not even considering the possibility of inheriting anything. Perhaps they do, and that's the reason behind their thoughts along these lines. In any case, whenever they encounter a member of the family in public, they have been recounting all of this to everyone they meet. Since we are all city dwellers and they are neighbors to multiple members of our family, this occurs frequently. Despite everyone's best efforts to avoid them, they always manage to bring up my name. Since I have been completely idle for the last month, I fail to see why they are so preoccupied with me. No matter how much I try to ignore them, they just can't seem to move on from whatever happened. In any case, I was rather irritated by this last week, so I brought it up with my aunt, and she has since informed me about it. Although an apology may be extended, she will never again communicate with her daughter. She went so far as to tell Julia that she was blocking her again. The two of them are now even more enraged with me than before. The only way they can reach me anymore is by email, therefore I know they created another false account only to yell at me. They threatened to hold me financially responsible for all that had happened. Ooh, that's terrifying. I can feel their utter disarray right this second. Even while I'm not very frightened, it can be really annoying. They had better watch out because I responded in writing that I would not hesitate to contact the police and put them in jail if they attempted anything inappropriate with me. I'm crossing my fingers that it terrifies them frequently. If not, I've set up a decent security system. 3 days ago, I got an email from Louis and Julia informing me that I will be held accountable for my actions. They nevertheless managed to pull off the most ridiculous thing imaginable, despite my warnings that I would contact the authorities if they attempted anything inappropriate. They made an attempt to enter my house last night. On multiple occasions, Julia has dropped by my place. I was immediately notified the moment they tried to access my door since, as she knows, I have a highly sophisticated security system. At about 1 in the morning, they apparently thought my door would be unlocked, and I have no idea why. I immediately contacted the authorities to report an attempted break-in to my residence. I was hoping it would be Julia and Louis, but I was afraid it might not be, so I was cautious. They arrived within 15 minutes, but to make matters worse, they were apprehended while dressed as burglars, making a break for it a short distance from my house, because they had cycled all the way here without their car. They both made an effort to deflect responsibility by saying they knew me personally and weren't attempting to steal anything. They wanted to talk to me, scare me a bit, so they broke in. I failed to see why they confessed to that, as if it would improve their legal standing. Upon being placed in handcuffs, Julia began to sob uncontrollably and begged me not to bring charges against her, but I was unable to empathize with her. No matter how many times you mess up, No one will ever forgive you. Even though Louis maintained his icy, hateful expression, I had grown accustomed to it, and it didn't bother me in the least. Anyway, I slept it off, because I had to be at work early in the morning. I informed my parents and aunt about what had happened, and they said they were aware because Julia had tried to get my aunt to come save her by calling her, but my aunt refused to even visit her, so now no one knows what's going to happen. I intend to file charges against them because I desire a protective order against them. Their mental state is clearly unstable, and I refuse to have any contact with them.